this time, we will call the meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. Can we please have a roll call?
Councilwoman Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Wall.
Here.
Councilman Anderson.
Here.
Councilwoman Galeen.
Here.
Councilmember Hawkins.
Here.
Vice Mayor Woolridge. Mayor Walter.
Here.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we will stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we are going to open call to the public. Call to the public for public comments. Sorry, I was setting the timer. On issues within the jurisdiction of the Town Council. Council rules limit public comment to 3 minutes. Individual council members may respond to criticism made by those commenting, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of council shall not discuss or take action during any matter during an open call to the public unless matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. We do have 3 minutes, and Ms. Stacy Gramazio.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Walter, Vice Mayor Woolridge, and Florence Town Council members. My name is Stacy Gramazio, and I'm representing Florence Copper, Inc. at 1575 West Hunt Highway. I'm here tonight to give you a project update. It's important to us that you have up-to-date information on the project's status. Last Thursday, the Arizona Water Quality Appeals Board denied the Town of Florence and Southwest Value Partners' motion to reconsider the board's previous approval of the Florence Copper Project's temporary aquifer protection permit. In rejecting the town and Southwest Value Partners' request, the Arizona Water Quality Appeals Board made clear that they believe Florence Copper's permit fully complies with Arizona law and found no merit in the claims made by the two parties. This means the state-issued temporary aquifer protection permit for the project is now final. Additionally, I'd like to once again extend an open invitation to each of you to have a discussion about the project's state-of-the-art technology and the stringent permit requirements of the state and federal permits. Several of you have not been on a site tour or had a conversation with us about in situ copper recovery and what it means for Florence. Some of you have had a tour way back in early 2011, before the project achieved many of the milestones it has over the past several years. We think it's a reasonable request to ask you to come to site for a discussion about the facts and how we can all work together in the best interest of Florence. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other call to the public at this time? Okay, with that, we are closing call to the public, moving into work session on the 2017-2018 fiscal year budget. At this time, we need a motion. We are going to be adjourning to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
Madam Mayor,
To adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
I think that we will be going into the regular budget work session first, if that's all right, ma'am.
Oh,
That is all right, yes.
Work session.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I think that today is a really big day, and I'm glad that there are so many citizens here to participate in this public process in order to discuss the budget for fiscal year 2017 and 2018. The first item I want to bring up is I prepared a handout that has a brief summary of some of the items. The actual budget is 218 pages, and so I couldn't cram that on one page on the front and the back, so I picked out some highlights. Hopefully they're the highlights you wanted to hear about also. And so I put a copy of this back on the little podium back there for anybody who's interested, some of those items. This evening, per the council's request, we are holding a budget work session before we hold our regular meeting at 6 o'clock. So we have a little bit of time to discuss what is in the budget right now. And so I have the slideshow that I want to walk through. But I would like to say that, again, I'm pleased at the process that we've been through. We as a team, both as staff and then working with the council with the comments that you've received from your constituents, have created a balanced budget for this next fiscal year. And even though our revenue significantly decreased over the previous fiscal year. And so I'm going to walk through some of these slides at this time. So here's an overview of the budget presentation. I'm first going to talk about some of the meetings that we as staff and as a budget committee and as a council and at public hearings held in order to prepare for preparation of the final budget. Next, I'm going to talk about some changes that occurred. The tentative budget was passed, and during the tentative budget conversation, council gave us some direction, and we made some changes to the budget per your direction. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those things. Next item is discussion on specific budget and programs. I have attached, thanks to IT and Ali, I have the entire budget, the final budget, and the entire final CIP on the computer right now, where we can go through individual pages or individual departments or programs as the council directs. Last item is, at this time, it seemed appropriate to kind of look forward. In my responsibilities, it's very important that I look back to see how we spend and how we did. I'm always looking forward to see how we're going to do in the future, to see if we're going to have enough money to meet the needs per your request. And so I wanted to get some direction from the council, if possible, as to how you would like to move forward to this next budget cycle, because I'm always looking forward to the next budget cycle, even though it's 9 months away. First, this is an overview of the meetings that we discussed. And the town clerk brought to my attention that I left off a couple, so I wanted to bring those up too. Oh, it looks like they're covered, but I wanted to provide some highlights. So what you have on the left side is, these are conversations we've had with the full council. On the right side are budget committee conversations that we held. All of these different days we were talking about the budget. What are we going to do with the revenue that's coming in? What are we going to do with the expenses that are going up? I have 3 items that are down here in the bottom left. Council budget work session, which is tonight. Public hearing on the final budget, which is tonight. And tentative adoption, potential adoption of the property tax levy, which will occur on August 7th. As the council is aware, this evening we will hold 3 public hearings pertaining to tax levy. One for the town of Florence, one for Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1, and Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 2. So those are the things that are going to happen after we have this exciting budget work session. Moving on to the next slide. Changes are reflected in the final budget. Because this document is 218 pages, errors occur and inconsistencies were found, and we addressed some of those. We addressed those. So the correct amount of wastewater capital projects was included in the final budget. There was a little bit of duplication in numbers. The amount and method of interfund transfers for the North Florence Improvement District and the Community Facilities Districts was modified to reflect actual anticipated expenses. I appreciate Councilwoman Galeen's assistance in making sure that we have all those pieces put together. Corrections were made so that the summary sheet matched department sheets, and the official Attorney General reports were updated to reflect these modifications. As the council may be aware, and the public may not be aware, there is official documents that we need to produce each year per the direction of the Attorney General. Those are very simplified summary of the budget. Those are also in the front of the budget book, which we'll be diving into later. Review of the final budget. So let me jump over to those slides. got the final budget here. And I'm ready to talk about all 218 pages, if you're interested. Joking aside, council members, Mayor, Madam Mayor, are there any particular budgets or programs or departments that you would like to review at this time?
Mr. Anderson?
Well, yes, I've gone through and noted questions on certain pages, things I didn't quite understand. Do we want to go through those, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. Page 5, Schedule A.
Page 5, Schedule A.
Page 5, Schedule A. It's the 2018 total financial resources, shows $28,354,539. The budget expenditures is 36 million. Did I say 28 million? Yeah, 28,354,539. The budget expenditures is 36,069. I just don't understand what the difference is between what we're budgeting versus what the financial resources available are. I'm sure it's a simple question, a simple answer, but it's been a long time since I've gone through this.
And that's a good question. It's unique. The way that the Attorney General wants us to look at our budget is a little bit different than the way you and I would look at it on a daily basis. They're counting some expenditures within their total financial resources available, but not all of the resources. Why does the Attorney General want us to look at some and not all? I can't speak to that. I don't have a clear answer for you on that. But I can state that the total budgeted expenditures for this next fiscal year, which includes everything except for the 2 community facility districts, is the $36 million. Now, that $36 million includes $2.5 million for grants. And Councilman Anderson, I think we discussed a little bit about that we put in a buffer within our budget in the anticipation that a grant may come in. Now, this does not mean that the town of Florence is going to spend $36 million this next year, but we've created that ceiling, that expenditure limitation, and the town of Florence cannot exceed the $36 million number.
Okay. Well, that gets to my next question. You've already answered it. Okay. The other question I had about that was I couldn't see anything about what our reserves are. What are the forecasted reserves? How much do we have in reserve?
That's a very good point. That's one of the things that I've learned about the town of Florence. In the city of Globe where I worked before, we presented the fund balance in a little bit different way. And so with this documentation, it does not show what the reserves are, but I can assure you, and let me back up. One of the things that I'm interested in doing this next fiscal year is being able to expand upon what we've done in the past in order to help the council members understand where we are within our budget. And as I do those presentations, which I'm planning on presenting on a quarterly basis, if that pleases the council, talking about what our fund balances are and where they're at. Right now, at the close of my fiscal year, I have an anticipation for what that fund balance is, but that number is getting narrowed down because of the journal entries I have to do at the end of the fiscal year. I don't have those numbers for you at this moment. I can go look them up and I can talk about them later tonight. But I can tell you that the town of Florence, in all of its particular funds, has a significant fund balance to provide for the town of Florence in case of an emergency. In fact, as I've reviewed what the town of Florence has in their fund balance, it exceeds many of our sister communities, which is a great position to be in.
Well, yeah, I'd like to hear that because, we've gone through this home rule situation, and one of the reasons that we lost that, at least I think one of the reasons, was lack of confidence by the citizens. So I want to make sure that they think that we up here are putting our best foot forward and trying to be physically responsible. So, yeah, I'd like to see that.
I understand, Councilman.
I'd also like to see that.
Joe, can I just ask a question in line with what John asked? On page 17, the general fund budget, there are some projected cash balances, and I'm wondering if maybe that wouldn't help in understanding. It looks like for the end of the current or the last fiscal year, we projected 7.8 million, and then at the end of this fiscal year, we're projecting 7.8 million as well.
That is correct. Now, this is the fund balance for just Fund Number 10, which I call my general fund. And as the council knows, we have a number of different funds. So yeah, that is correct. And as you look through the budget book, each of the funds, there is a fund projection on those individual sheets, now that I'm remembering. So if you jump to, for example, Fund 11, you'll see what the fund balance was at the beginning of fiscal year 2016, 2017, and the projected fund balance at the end of fiscal year 2016, 2017.
Okay. Okay, on page 7, Schedule C, there's 2 different service charges, one for $139,000, and the miscellaneous other was $39,000. When I see other, it sort of bothers me. What's others mean?
What's other? Okay, one of the reasons we use the word other is to catch a lot of different small ones. We're a little limited on the size of this particular report because it's the Attorney General's report. They want us to fit within their criteria, and so sometimes I have to consolidate some of my lines in order to fit within the criteria that they have asked. That particular one, let's think about that. That's in the general fund.
Business licenses? No?
No, that would be separated out. But let me jump over to, for the general fund, we have another separate report that gives every individual revenue line in the general fund. This is where that report is. So this would be the location where you could see each of the individual. Yes, I see that we have a miscellaneous right there, and you see that there's $0 budget this next year. Sometimes we get revenue that just doesn't fit all the other criteria of revenue. So I would recommend that we look towards this particular document as it's more breadth and gives better detail than the Attorney General's report.
Well, you didn't answer my question about the $139,000.
You're right, I didn't. Let me go back up. $139 charges for services, okay.
This is revenues other than property taxes.
Yes, it is. It's revenue other than property taxes. Yeah, right. Councilman Anderson, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the 2 schedules together so that I can determine which one is the 139, because it's a combination of a couple different revenue sources.
What's the amount?
Well, I don't want to hold us up here any longer.
Okay, we found our 139. One portion of that is for CFD administrative reimbursement, pay station fees, Southwest Gas, and, APS. Customers can come to the town of Florence and pay their APS bill, and APS pays us a small fee. in order to handle that. Pay station for Cox, people can pay their Cox bills here.
Okay,
Sanitation administrative reimbursement, and Country Thunder fees.
oh, okay, good, thank you.
This is on page 19, Councilman,
Okay,
and this is within the general fund revenue breakdown. I apologize for not having an answer for you right away.
well, I'm setting you up here tonight, so you're doing good. The other question I had, you and I talked about this before, and this is on page 18, the city sales food tax.
Yes.
It's still not clear to me, is the sales food tax, is that a new tax?
And that's a good question. It is not a new tax. The city sales, it should actually say town sales food tax.
Yeah.
Town sales food tax has not changed for about 5 or 6 years. And it will continue to be collected at the same rate that it was adopted previously. What we're doing here is, per the council's direction, the town of Florence is taking a portion of the town sales food tax out of the town food tax fund and putting it towards the general fund. Last year, as I understand it, the council gave direction to the staff that we could utilize the food tax revenue to help support the general fund functions.
Okay,
And so we're recognizing it now in the general fund, whereas previously it was recognized in Fund 13. No, Fund 14, excuse me.
okay, well, the thing that sort of blew me, the previous years were all blank.
Yes, that's correct. And so from here, it looks like, Joe, are we charging a new tax? And we're not. We're just recognizing it in a different fund per the direction of the council.
Okay, thank you. Page 19. I get to pick on Brian now. Parks and Recs. The Aquatic Center, our fees for the swimming pool were $32,000. Our budget is $269,000. I know that we have to subsidize that, but I know we only charge $1 a person for the kids to get. Is that too low? Should we be upping those rates, or do we do a rate analysis? Or
Mayor, Councilmember Anderson, we are currently working on a fee, rate analysis, and we are recommending a slight increase to those fees to try and reduce that subsidy.
okay, thank you. While I'm talking to you on page 19, the intercession programs, what is that?
Mayor, Councilmember Anderson, the intercession program is the day camp that is provided in school breaks, so fall break, spring break, winter break, summer break. That is the revenue that's where that goes specifically.
Okay, good, thank you. And on page 88, special events, you have $20,900 for professional services. We have a lot of good people on our staff. I'm wondering why we were paying professional services.
You said 88, is that correct, Councilman?
Yes.
Okay.
Page 88. Special professional events. Special events, professional services.
So, Councilman, part of that, before Brian gets to that page, is recently for the 4th of July event, we paid for the fireworks. And so we weren't able to provide that as our staff, so we had to pay a professional to provide that. We paid for speaker system to come in because the town of Florence doesn't have a speaker system. Brian, I think you can speak to it better than I can.
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Anderson, Joe pretty much hit it. It's of the 24, 18,000 of that is for fireworks.
Okay,
And then
good.
the rest of it is bands and things like that.
Okay, good answer. Okay. Okay, that's all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. Does any other members of council have any questions at this time?
I just want to clarify that I'm a new council member, obviously, and I had a lot of questions. So rather than taking the time here, I did call this morning and spoke with Joe extensively, and I appreciate you taking as much time as you did this morning, going over the book in and out. So I appreciate that.
No problem. I would like to state that once the final budget is adopted, we will be printing 3 copies of the final budget and the final CIP. A copy will be available at City Hall, the library, and at the Senior Center for anybody to view. In addition, it will be online. I haven't printed a copy of the final budget yet because I was waiting for direction from the council. Thought it would be a little presumptuous to print it before you've had a chance to adopt it. Okay, I'm going to transition over to the CIP.
One other question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Should we ask does the public have any questions on this? Are they allowed to
This
ask?
isn't a public portion.
Oh, the work session is not public?
Correct.
Oh, okay, I thought the work session was. Excuse me.
Not for questions at this time.
Well, when we had the work sessions before and we had them down on the floor, the public participated in them.
We had it noted in the agenda.
Okay. All right.
We also will be holding a public hearing for the final budget later in the same meeting. When I had to publish for that public hearing about a month ago, and so I appreciate that the council members did not request that I move the public hearing to the wrong time. So we will be holding those public hearings after 6 o'clock today.
Can I just bring up one thing about the budget? And I guess I didn't see exactly what page it's on, but just looking through the register of the demands for this past month, one thing that's brought to my attention and I was meaning to speak about was Coco's contract and it expiring. Something I know that in my conversations with Brian is that we had been planning on sort of phasing that out. I was just hoping that maybe this next fiscal year we could work on phasing that out faster, or wonder what the rate is that we are currently phasing that system out so that we can have it taken over. I think we have very capable staff who'd be able to take it over, and I'd like that to be our thing.
Good. Mayor, Councilmember Larson, we are phasing that out. Last year, we relied pretty much solely on Coco for all our teen programming leadership services. This year, as I outlined in the memo that I think you guys got towards the end of June, we've pretty much cut in half, over less than half of what he's going to be doing this year. And this year, Allie Feliz and David Lewis are kind of taking the lead from the staff side. So it's going to be kind of a mixture. And so we are planning on, again, kind of weaning Coco off as we kind of get a little bit more expertise in this area.
Do you know what the rate is at that, or when an expected end date on that? I see we're spending about $4,000 a month at this point.
Yes.
I feel that that's just, for the parties and everything, that's great, but I hear that you guys are doing a lot of the preparation and the planning on your own terms, which is fantastic. So I feel that we could better utilize those funds somewhere else.
Right now, the plan is to utilize Coco throughout the fiscal year, but if we, again, as you said, is if we're picking things up a little bit quicker and doing things more on our own, there is a termination clause in the contract that we are working with him on right now that allows us to terminate that at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge an email that I believe all of the council members received from Mr. Bill Foster, who is the Vice President of the Florence Aero Modelers Organization. And Mr. Foster was asking the town to consider possibly contributing half of the expense to resurface the airfield at the Aero Modelers location. And it's my understanding that now that we've approved the tentative budget, that we can't add additional money to the current budget that we're considering. But I had a question as to whether or not there might be any way to provide in-kind assistance or possibly a loan to the Aero Modelers. I personally, along with Brian and Brent, walked that airfield, and it is a disaster. I think it probably would become necessary for them to shut that whole facility down if the field is not resurfaced. And it would be a loss, I think, of one of our recreational opportunities. Even though I know it's the responsibility of the Aero Modelers to maintain the field, I would like to see us in some way work out an accommodation for them.
I do believe that in the general fund you have a contingency amount in general government that possibly could be utilized for that. because they are willing to pay for half of it, I don't believe that we should loan them any money, possibly use some contingency money for that. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of council have any other additional questions or comments?
Well, I agree with Councilwoman Galeen about loaning. I think that gets into a very gray area.
I
So,
agree as well.
Now, one item I want to bring up that Lisa reminded me of, that if the council chooses to make any changes to the budget, you are certainly welcome to do this evening. I request that you do it during the public hearing for the budget. That way we can incorporate that in.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Okay, let me move on to the next slide then. Okay, we're ready to talk about next fiscal year. Oh, next steps, never mind. Public hearing, that's what we're doing tonight. We're doing a public hearing on the final budget, property tax levy, the truth in taxation. Presentation and consideration and adoption of the fiscal year 17-18 final budget, that's tonight. And the reason I say consideration, because it's at the council's decision. We're not saying that you have to adopt it this evening. We've met one goal of the tentative budget being approved, and that's great. Next one is presentation and consideration of adoption of the fiscal year 17-18 property tax levy for the town and the special districts, and that will occur on or after August 7th. I skipped. It's because I missed a slide, that's why. Okay, here we go. Let me open that back up. Budget developed for next fiscal year. Staff is considering how council will be updated to include presentations to the council and to the community. Staff is in the process of putting together a calendar of what those events will look like this next fiscal year. And once that calendar is ready, I'll be sharing it with the council so that you are aware of the process that we're going through. Staff will hold a review of the budget calendar process and procedures in order to make improvements and create consistent steps that may be followed each year. Staff is seeking direction this evening on items of, will a council budget committee be used next year? A little bit of background on that. I tried to tabulate a little bit of time that I spent with Councilwoman Wall and Councilwoman Galeen talking about our budget, and I estimated at least 25 hours were spent in meetings with both of them, or individually, or together, or so forth, because of their varying schedules. And with that in mind, I wanted the other council members to be aware that joining the budget committee is a commitment of time, and it was meetings during the day between working hours so that we could prepare the budget items for the council to consider. And then if a committee is to be created, who would be part of that committee? I'm not interested in pushing the council in a direction they don't want to go, but I am interested in getting some direction as to what you anticipate for this next year so that myself and my staff and the administration can plan accordingly.
We appreciate all of the work, first of all, that Councilmember Galeen and Councilmember Wall has put forward into serving on the budget committee. It's my understanding that the majority of council likes the procedure of having a budget committee in place. Am I correct in that understanding?
yes.
Yes. I prefer the committee.
So with that format going forward, one improvement that I could see is maybe some of those meetings that not all members were able to participate in, just having some notes for them to stay up on all of the information.
Okay.
as well as the work sessions that are open to the public. We do a tremendous job in advertising the meetings that we have, making them accessible. If there's a way that we could have them videoed to where residents that are unable to attend can still participate from their homes, in the fact that they can view the work sessions, and it would provide opportunity for them to email or, communicate to us what they like, what they don't like. And at this time, I want to ask any other members of council for some feedback as well.
I would just like to make a comment. We had the budget committee, and I know that we were rushed and pressed for time, but I do think that we did not fully involve the total council in a full detailed analysis and explanation of the budget itself. They need a participation factor where, just like Councilmember Anderson had questions, that he could delve in a little bit better. So I think we need to schedule those work sessions either in one full day or 2 half days or something until we get it all hammered out, because there are questions that people need to have answered. If they don't have the full explanation or understanding, they're not going to support the budget.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Just to build on what she said, there was times where I would have liked to go to the meetings, but I didn't know about them in advance, and some of them would be that day, and I can't get childcare that fast. I need to be able to know in advance. So if we do have these meetings, then I would like to, even if I'm not on the committee, I'd still like to know what's going on, at least to even be able to address some questions after the fact. Like I said, that would be really helpful. I know you've been so great with my questions and meeting with me one-on-one, but it'd be nice to hear what everybody else has to say at the same time.
Well, I think it's good that when we have those meetings, if more people can be there, because your questions may be my questions.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain communication fulfillment if we all hear the answers. Yeah.
Well, not just that. Everyone should hear the same thing at the same time. And then maybe your interpretation would be different from Kristen's. And so we need to clarify that interpretation for the town itself to make sure everybody's on the same page. I feel that that is an important factor that maybe, because we did have some clarification meetings, not in total, that could cause a little bit of misunderstanding somewhere along the way later on, and that's just my personal opinion.
I think this budget cycle was a little different because you got in late
Yes.
doing it.
Yeah.
So I just think for future reference, because we have had budget committees before, so if you can schedule those meetings, which is what is normally done, if you can just have a meeting scheduled, that way if people aren't on the committee and they want to attend the meetings, they will know when those meetings are going to occur. So if you can just sit down and do a schedule of meetings, I think that will be helpful.
And that's part of the purpose of creating a calendar for the council, so you're aware of generally when we're talking about, for example, in the month of November, we're going to start our CIP conversations with departments, and we anticipate that in January, we're going to have our first budget work session talking about the CIP. So I see the value, and I want to be able to create that.
If I can comment as a second-year member of the Budget Committee, I had no idea how complex the financial management of this town is. And it would have been helpful for me and possibly for John and any others who may in the future serve on the Budget Committee to have a basic Budget 101 overview. Not so much looking at the nitty-gritty numbers, but understanding the interfund transfers and all of the different accounts that the town has that impact the overall budget. You know, we always tend to focus a lot on the general fund, but there are so many other funds, the water, the sewer, the sanitation, the CFDs, all of the different funds that go into making up the budget. And you know, after 2 years, I don't even profess to understand it completely. Becky, as having been our finance manager, it comes naturally to her. And I've learned so much from her and from our finance director that I think it would be helpful for all of us and the general public as well to have a Budget 101 session before we even start the process, so that as we build the blocks of the budget, it makes more sense to everyone.
Along those lines, we did spend a bulk of our time talking about the general fund, much to the chagrin of Chris, because he wants us to talk about his other funds, the importance there. But main reason is we were concerned about the imbalance between revenue and expenses because of the decrease in the state shared revenues. And so we spent a lot of our time talking about what are we going to do to modify the general fund. And so there is great value in what you're saying. We spent most of our time talking about GF.
So at this time, can you go back one? There you go. Nope.
Right here, okay, sorry.
Who will be on the committee? At this time, I don't want to finalize that. However, let's allow time for council to discuss with you whether or not we're interested in participating on that budget committee.
Okay.
But overall, I feel that all of council is interested in participating.
That's the message I heard
Yes,
6 or 7 times.
yes. So thank you.
You're welcome. That covers my budget work session items. Unless there's any other items that the council, Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, or the council would like to discuss at this time.
I do not have any at this time. Does any other members of council? No. Okay, moving on to item 7 is the adjournment to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
Mayor,
Yes.
our public hearings are advertised to start at 6 p.m. So we would ask that we take items out of order to continue and continue with the agenda, moving agenda items out of the way without meeting before our scheduled time.
Thank you.
We can either go through the consent agenda, we can go through the presentations. We do have people ready here to go through and start the presentation process. Evie is here, so we can do whatever it is you like.
Okay, let me. Let's move to item 11D, which is presentation on the Florence Hospital Anthem by Ms. Danielle Dressor, Marketing and Community Liaison.
Mayor and council members, thank you very much for having us here today. We're very excited to be here. We want to, well, first of all, I'm Danielle Dresser. I am the Marketing and Community Liaison for Florence Hospital. And want to take a minute to introduce myself and kind of talk about who we are. Just in case you don't know, we're right up the road from you. And we want to talk about a little, and I want to talk about a little bit of some new and exciting initiatives in an effort to grow the relationship that we have currently with the town of Florence and the surrounding communities. So, as you may know, we are your Florence Community Hospital. We have 24/7 emergency services, and you can see a doctor within 30 minutes or less of coming through our doors. There are a lot of things that are very important to us at Florence Hospital and Anthem. Patient satisfaction, quality service, quality care, safety, employee relations, physician satisfaction, improving communities is also a big one for us. We also, like I said, we offer 24/7 emergency care services, diagnostic imaging, pharmacy, laboratory and surgical services, as well as a lot more. I'm not going to go on a laundry list for you. But like I said before, you can come see us. You'll see a doctor within 31 minutes or less, most of the time less. And we're excited to be your community hospital. Some of the new exciting initiatives that we have going on right now, if in case you haven't seen the signage at Florence Hospital, is that we are excited to be contracted with United Healthcare. We're also contracted with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and later this summer we'll be working with Cigna Health Insurance. So very excited about that. We want to push that messaging out to, like I said, Florence and the surrounding communities. On Friday, August 25th, from 3 to 7, we are inviting all of the community, as well as all of you, to our open house that we're having. We'll be giving hospital tours as well as refreshments. We'll be at the door and door prizes. So we're very excited that, to invite you and hope to see you there. We have been involved in the Florence community and the Chamber of Commerce, but we would like to take it to the next level as far as our involvement and participation with town events, and like I said, growing that relationship. So some of the things that we'd like to take part of that we have a little bit in the past, but we'd like to continue to, are some of the celebrations that you have, like in Easter, around Halloween, or the Light Parade, New Year's Eve block party, a lot of the events that the Anthem community does as well. We're also going to be hosting some events at our hospital, such as blood drives, some health screenings, and we ask that we work together to try to promote those things and work together on that. We're really excited about Casino Night at the end of the month as well. Maybe Lou is a little bit more excited than I am, but. Let's see, as of last year, Florence Hospital and Anthem was under new management, New Vision Health, and we're excited to have some members of our executive team here today. We have Dennis Rutherford, who's our Chief Executive Officer, as well as Kim Casillas. She is our Chief Nursing Officer. Our Chief Financial Officer, Lou Schroeder. And unfortunately, our Chief Medical Officer, Timothy Johns, couldn't be here tonight, but he sends his best. But like I said before, thank you very much for welcoming us. We're very excited to be here and very excited to continuing to serve Florence community and surrounding areas. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come out to provide the presentation, as well as communicate the open house that's going to be on the 25th. We appreciate your involvement in the community and keep us afloat of what's happening, and we'll make sure that we can partner together to make sure we are communicating that information to the citizens.
You bet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next item that we have is going to be item 11C. We have a special presentation this evening of a key to the town to a local girl who has been performing on America's Got Talent. She has a touching story that has reached over 20 million people across the country, if not more. So with this, I would like all of council to come down at this time, as this is our first key that we have been given as an entire council to anybody.
Mayor, while you guys are coming down, I'll just read a brief bio. It says, Evie Claire is 13 years old and has been playing the piano and singing since she was 2. Evie got her start at age 8 singing and tap dancing in Annie at Hale Theater. She performed the national anthem at the Arizona Diamondbacks game, released 2 original pop singles, and received 1 of 3 Judges' Choice Awards in the worldwide contest for her cover of Glorious. Her music video cover of Take On Me was awarded an Arizona Interfaith Movement for promoting the Golden Rule and presented at the Parliament of the World's Religions, and she recorded an album produced by Arizona Golden Rule Education Experiences called Stars Shine Brightly. Evie won a contest to sing the theme song for the movie Once I Was a Beehive and was able to perform it live for the official movie premiere. She also had an original song featured on the movie soundtrack. In 2015 and 2016, Evie Claire was invited to participate in Worldwide Christmas Initiative with a cover of Mary Did You Know, and released her pop single, Love You One More Time. In 2017, she was featured on season 12 of America's Got Talent and brought the world to tears. We were fortunate locally to have her sing the national anthem at the 4th of July Freedom Fest. So with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor.
And she also sang at the FUSD convocation this morning. Beautiful voice. Miss Evie, do you want to say something before we present you with this key?
I just want to say thank you. This is such a huge honor, and I'm so glad that we moved here to Florence. We were really debating it between whether if we were going to move here or to Missouri, and I'm really glad that we chose to move here, so thank you.
Well, we're glad that you moved here too. We're looking forward to you doing great things. This is a key to the city. While it doesn't open up every door, it is an amazing, amazing gift to be bestowed upon. So cherish it. And you really did move everybody to tears across the country. So would you like to sing just a little something?
I don't know what to sing. I don't know, Mom, what should I sing? What should I sing? Okay. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
Evie, when will you be on America's Got Talent again? A week from tomorrow.
Okay, so everybody in Florence, tune in. Miss Lisa, did we give her the box that the key came in? Yes. Thank you. Isn't her voice absolutely beautiful? Our next presentation is going to be item 11E, which is Mr. Jessica Knutson, the presentation of the end of session legislative overview.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I will not be singing this evening. So, majority of the council was able to see the League of Arizona Cities and Towns presentation a few weeks back on the close of the legislative session. So I won't spend a whole lot of time this evening, but just wanted to touch on a few of the highlights and lowlights of the session, and then as we gear up, as we try to digest what occurred and start thinking about what to expect and for the next legislative session, as it is just a few months away. Some of the statistics that the league was able to provide. It was May 10th was 117 days within the session, which is a little about 100 days is about average. The effective date of the laws is coming up quickly on August 9th, unless there was an emergency declared. That's when all these new laws that were passed will become law. Had about 1,079 bills introduced, a few less than last year. And as you can see, a few more of the statistics as far as the bills sent to the governor and the number of bills signed. Did have 11 vetoes of bills this last year. The town's focus, we did a presentation right when the session started, and we spoke to the council and received your feedback on what's important to the town of Florence, what's important to the town council with regards to these bills as they are quickly introduced and flow through the process. Number one is local control. The council wants to determine the welfare of our citizens and wants to make those decisions, and would appreciate the state to refrain from those types of handcuffs placed on local control. State share revenue is a big issue for Florence, it's a big issue for all cities and towns. Do no harm, that's mostly with respect to the different financial crunches and some of the dollars that have been taken away from the town and continue to be taken away from the town, Florence and other cities and towns. And of course, through our fire and police services, we want to make sure that the new rules and laws that are passed are going to promote the welfare of our citizens. I just have five laws that I identified through the PowerPoint that were important. There's many others that we've spoke about in the past, but I wanted to speak about it, just a few of these here tonight. Won't take a great deal of time, but it just kind of goes to show of what we've been working on with the session. Legislators have been working on this legislative session. So one of the Senate Bill 1522 is a continuation of previous year's bills that places $11.6 million worth of liability or financial constraint back on cities and towns for them to fund the operations of the Department of Revenue. So this is a key theme that we've seen in past years. We saw less movement, but we haven't been able to regain some of these dollars. So we continue to pay for cities and towns, continue to pay for Department of Revenue operations. We continue to pay for Department of Public Safety through her funds. Dollars that should be spent in Florence on roads are spent instead to fund the Department of Public Safety. Senate Bill 1063, with regards to the risk pool, this is a positive. What this does is establishes a new formula moving forward with regards to how the police and fire their risk pool, and we've seen hasn't affected Florence to the degree that we've seen others. Globe, Casa Grande, others have tens of millions of dollars worth of liability on their books. So this law was able to address that moving forward and identify a much needed break in the current structure. CFDs was Senate Bill 1480. We talked about this extensively last year as well as this year. If you recall, last year it was the developers, the home developers would make it mandatory for a CFD to be created. Would also the majority of the board makeup would be from the development community or by the developer's selection. So we saw that bill passed, by the way, both chambers last year, and was vetoed surprisingly by the governor. Surprisingly, just because it was not expected. This year, the CFD bill was moved forward, but it still provides the town of Florence and other cities and towns in Arizona with the decision to create that CFD or not. It's not an automatic trigger like it was I talked about last year, and the majority of the CFD board is still determined by the town councils. Senate Bill 2161. We'll see kind of how this plays out a little bit, but this identified 12 additional types of cancer to the list of conditions for firefighters. So if a firefighter is diagnosed with one of the already identified types of cancers or one of these new 12 types, it's automatically presumed that it was caused by by a result of their employment with a city or town and as a firefighter. And of course, Senate Bill 2088, been talking about this here in Florence for a number of years, since 2009, with regards to the incorporation. Specifically, this would affect the ability of Santan Valley to move forward with a vote of incorporation. Some of the news we've seen, and it's just news that I've read, is that they're looking at the November of next year, November of 2018, for that vote. So. These are just a few laws that I want to identify, talk about next year with regards to some rumblings that we heard in this session that might carry over to next session with regards to construction sales tax, something that's always out there. The lobbyists in the development community are very strong, and one of the things that they've been pushing for over a number of years is a relief with the construction sales tax. Public utility easements, whether we're dealing with the utility companies, communication companies, or the cell phone companies. This continues to be a conversation that's had every session. As a city or town, we want to make sure that we're able to control what happens in our right-of-ways. And of course, from the utility perspective, they want to control where they can put their equipment. So some discussions continue every year to make sure that we identify that middle ground. We're expecting some declining tax revenues, and we're also expecting some additional tax breaks or tax deductions that are identified through the legislative process. How does this going to affect cities and towns? This is something that we keep a close eye out, because we have seen the shortfalls in the state budgets are borne on the backs of cities and towns. We had some many conversations this year about the bonding and the ASU with regards to their ability to bond. We'll see some more conversations take place. More preemptions with regards to the state controlling some of the primary functions of cities and towns. And we're looking at an election year. So how is that going to impact some of these conversations as they do occur? So we do have Representative Rios in the audience tonight, and I do want to point out the fact that she continues to be a champion for cities and towns this last session, as well as the many previous sessions that she has been involved with. So I do want to thank her for that. With that, if Mayor, Vice Mayor, if any questions you may have, otherwise that does conclude my presentation.
I've got a question about next year.
Yeah, sure.
On several of the water committees that I'm serving on, they're talking about the recharge credits that expire. And I guess the Arizona Department of Water Resources is proposing that they take that expiration date off altogether. And so I'd like to know how we can support that. Ms. Rios, can you help us?
It's a conversation that we've been having here at the town, and as you know, Councilmember Anderson through PEQA. So it's as you know, there's been some committees that have been established, and there's some experts that are at the table discussing the degree of the issue, and we're hoping we'll come to the table with some possible solutions to address any concerns that might be out there.
Okay, I can get you the name of the ADWR guy who's sort of spearheading that. Maybe we can have a conversation with him.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, going out of order is a little tricky sometimes, but I know Valerie will keep me in check if I go off. All right, so it is 6:06 p.m., so we can adjourn to the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1 at that time.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item A is public hearing to receive citizens' comments on the proposed final budget for Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 1. With that, Joe Jarvis.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members. The first item I want to mention is I have a pamphlet in the back of the room having to do with the general fund. The information on this pamphlet will not be discussed in this presentation. It's a different organization. The next item I have is I appreciate the comments that I've received from Councilwoman Galeen. We've made some modifications to your items. That's the reason why I have a copy of it on your dais at this time. We are going to be looking at Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1. The items that were changed do not affect the bottom line. There were some spaces that I left out mistakenly on my official documentation. This is a copy of the official forms that the Attorney General requires for each of the community facility districts and for the town budget. Next item I have is to discuss the presentation with you. It was important, I appreciated the comment I received, to have some color differentiation between the presentations. Right now, you are the district board. One of the things that was exciting to me is when I showed up, I heard that I was also a treasurer of a district. I said, that's wonderful. What's the pay like? And they said $0. So I'm talking to you today right now, not as the finance director, but as the treasurer for this district. Okay, here's an overview of my presentation. How is the revenue used? How much is collected? We're going to talk about a sample property tax bill. And then we're going to talk about some scenarios and its impact. Hold on just a second. Quad, do we have a laser? It doesn't work? Okay, never mind. We'll move on without it. I'll use the, oh, I've got a cursor. I'll use the cursor. I'm good, I'll use the cursor. Next, first item is, how are secondary property taxes used? The property tax for the community facilities districts are secondary property taxes. Secondary property taxes are used to reimburse the developer for infrastructure improvements in the district. In the community facility district, as a finance method, the developer goes in and puts in the improvements. Then working with the district in the area, the district then bonds to pay for those improvements. And they use it as a secondary property tax on all of those individuals who purchase property within the district. And they, over the period of time, pay off that debt. How are the administrative taxes used? As you'll notice later on as I look at an individual bill, there are two portions of this tax. There's 30 cents per the assessed value, and then there's $3.25. The 30 cents of the tax is used for administering the district. So having to do with managing the finances, handling the documentation, handling the legal requirements of the district. There are specific requirements that we as the district must fulfill, and we are able to do those with the assistance of specific professional organizations and our own existing staff. How much is collected? Here's an example of some of the amounts that have been collected. What you have here in this row, in this first column, is the name, the secondary property tax, and the administrative fee. Then you have a column for just what was actually collected in fiscal year 15-16. This was the budget for 16-17. And then this is the anticipated collection for this fiscal year. The fiscal year ended on June 30th, 2016, but my staff and I are still in the process of closing out what had occurred in the previous fiscal year. This is the budget that is being set. This dollar amount, as you'll notice, is increasing. We are not proposing an adjustment to that rate. The reason it's increasing is because the assessed value is increasing. There are more properties being built in that district, and the values of those properties have increased. And that's the reason why this number is larger than these. This is an example of a property tax bill. So one of the things I want to point out, when I worked for Broward County, Florida, we were the county. We were the one who were assessing people their property taxes. And when we had our budget hearings, we had a lot of citizens coming in and asking us questions about their property tax bill. And so this is something that people don't talk about and think about on a daily basis. So I wanted to take some time to talk about it. In general, this is your property tax bill. This particular property, the assessed value is determined by the assessor. That doesn't mean how much you can sell your property for. That's what the assessor determines how much your property is worth. You and I both generally know that the assessor assesses our value of our property much lower than what we could actually sell it for. Now, there are specific exemptions that exist. Then you have the net assessed value, and they have your tax amount. You'll notice that in this property tax bill, there's about 15 different entities that are assessing property taxes on this property. It all depends on where that property resides. If that property resided a mile to the east or north, there'd be very different taxing agencies for this property. So this one has 3 different for Pinal County. School Equalizer, Town of Florence, Florence USD, Unified School District, Pinal County, and then you get down, here's the CFD, this is the administrative fee, and then you have your CFD, and this is the bond amount, the $3.25. Now, you may also note, this is describing to you what each of the levy amounts are for. Is it primary or is it secondary? CFDs are secondary. Next is a little bit of an explanation of a purpose. Now, at one time, we reached out to the county and asked them, can you expand that section right there to provide a little bit more explanation? And they said no. So this is as much as we're going to be able to say. So for this one's a bond, and this one's an override, and this one's an adjustment ways. Thank you. I don't even know. Adjacent ways. Next one we have is the tax rate. Each of these entities are allowed to assess specific dollar amounts on the assessed value. Each of them, each fiscal year, can go back with their board or their district board and determine what those rates are going to be. And those rates can be modified on an annual basis. Some of these are, you'll notice there's significant difference in the prices. This one is 0.05 cents, so 5 cents. This one up here is $3.67. This one's $3.41. Then your next column is, how much did I pay in taxes in 2015? How much do I anticipate paying in taxes in 2016? And then whether there'll be an increase or a decrease. There are a number of factors that are impacting these tax bills. One of them is your assessed value. As a property owner, I want my assessed value to go up every year. That way, someday when I sell my property, I make money on that. As a property owner, I don't want to pay more in taxes, but if my value of my property is going up, I'm probably going to be paying more in taxes. There's another aspect here, and that is what each of these districts can determine what that tax rate is. This evening, we are holding the public hearings for the council to discuss and you to hear from the public as to what that tax rate should be this next fiscal year. There are some constraints on what a district can do on their property on their rates. You can't just increase it by exponential amounts. There are restrictions, and I'm not going to be able to speak to them very clearly. Councilwoman Galeen would be much more adept at speaking to some of those restrictions, but I can say that there are some restrictions. But one of the things I do want to bring up is the value of having an anticipated revenue. Part of the benefit of the property tax revenue is it's a fairly consistent revenue source. As we talked about this last fiscal year, there was a dramatic change in the amount of state shared revenue that we were going to receive. That revenue can be impacted or can be guided very little by you as the elected board. It is more guided by the legislators or the environment in our state. And so this is one revenue source that is a little more control per the council or the district. At this time, council members, do you have any other further questions? I've gone through a lengthy explanation on this, but I think it was valuable. A couple meetings ago, I had an opportunity to talk to about 10 different citizens at the same time, and they all wanted to talk about the property tax. And I'm trying to provide some of the answers that they were asking for at this meeting. I have another example. I guess I have just one example here. Next thing I want to talk about, the district council, you as the board, determined to implement a rate of $3.25 and 30 cents for administration. This scenario has been in place since the districts were created. Scenario number one, this is what I'm presenting this evening for your consideration. Maintain a rate of $3.25. If a property's assessed value is equal to $100,000, then in 2016, $325 in secondary property taxes were paid to the district. In 2017, $325 in secondary property taxes will be paid to the district because we're maintaining the rate. So if your property assessed value stayed the same, you would pay the same amount in taxes 1 year to the next. Scenario one is the other half. That is, maintain a rate of 30 cents. That's the administration part. If a property's assessed value is equal to $100,000, then in 2016, $30 in secondary property taxes for administration were paid to the district. In 2017, $30 in secondary property taxes for administration will be paid to the district. Staff recommendation, staff recommends at this time that the rates of $3.25 and 30 cents be maintained. Next steps. This evening, the District Council will consider the approval of the fiscal year 2017-18 budget. The budget will be impacted by the secondary property tax levy. Staff is seeking guidance from the District Council as to the rate that the Council is considering. The District Council will consider the approval of the property tax levy on August 7th of 2017. So you're not deciding that tonight, but I would like some direction from you. If you as the council decide to change what that rate will be, it will impact the budget, and I want to be prepared for you, prepare a budget that's in line with what you are inclined to think.
Okay, at this time, I am going to open the public hearing. Are there any members of public that have any comments at this time that would like to speak?
I'll get out of the way.
Okay, with that, we're going to close the public hearing. Are there any members of council that would like to speak at this time?
I have a question. Of course.
Councilmember Anderson, thank you.
Some time ago, we refinanced one of the groups to change the bonds to a lower interest rate. And I think at that time, we decided to leave the rates the same, but it was going to change the timing of the bonds, is that right? So do we know what that end effect is?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Anderson, you're absolutely correct. Last September, the town of Florence refinanced the general obligation debt, or a portion of the general obligation debt, in CFD number 1, this very same CFD that Joe was just speaking to. By refinancing that debt, we essentially bought down the time period associated with the debt and maintained the rates that we currently have. And if I recall, I think we shortened the maturation or the payback of those individual GO bonds by 5 years at that time. Don't quote me on the 5 years, but that's what I recall from the transaction we made last year. But you're absolutely correct. It was to maintain the rates and shorten the time frame on the bonds.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I want to make sure. Thank you.
I just want to make a comment on there. At this time, when we refinanced those bonds, an analysis was done on what rate would need to be levied to maintain the debt service. So you cannot adjust this rate unless you do something else, because we would not be able to support the debt service. So this is what the levy is for, is to repay the debt.
Okay. So moving into item B is the resolution number MRCFD number 136-17, which is the discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the Merrill Ranch Community Facility Districts number 1, Pinal County, Arizona, which is adopting the budget for fiscal year 2017 and 18. Joe, is there anything additional you would like to say on that item? Is there any additional comments or questions by council regarding that item? Okay, with that, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number MRCFD 136-17.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. Item C is ordinance number MRCFD number 114-17, which is the first reading of an ordinance of the Merrill Ranch Community Facility District number 1, Pinal County, Arizona, which is levying the assessed valuation of the property within the Community Facility Districts number 1, subject to taxation of certain sum upon each $100 of valuation sufficient to raise the amount estimated to be received from funds by community facilities expense for the fiscal year ending the 30th day of June 2018 and declaring an emergency. Now, I would like to speak on that because it's an item that we communicate every year, just because we have new residents that come in, as well as it's a good refresher. So at this time, Mr. Brent Billingsley, when we talk about declaring an emergency, can you please explain to our audience why we do that?
if an item is of critical risk, typically when we declare an emergency, it has to do with an emergency expenditure that has to occur that cannot go through the full process, and we typically do that after the fact. Say we had a major piece of equipment go down like a traffic signal and we had to make immediate repairs. We could do an emergency purchase and then come back to council to ratify that. In this case, it's a different scenario, and I don't believe we need to declare an emergency tonight. We're going to come back.
So in this particular case, it's because when we submit our documents over to the county, we'll submit them the day after you vote on them, and they need to know that they're final, rather than to have that 30-day resting period before they become active. So what Joe will do is, our finance director, as soon as you adopt these at our next meeting, he will bundle them up, send over the information to the Pinal County tax assessor, so they can know what kind of type of information that they need to include in their rolls.
Okay. And thank you for that explanation. Is there any members of council that would like to add anything else at this time as well? Okay, with that, I do need a motion.
That's the first reading.
No, it's the first reading. That's why my computer glitched and I was going back and forth. All right, so we are closing that agenda item. And item number D is the one that we will need discussion, approval, and disapproval of the Merrill Ranch Community Facility Districts Number 1, October 13, 2015, December 5th, 2016, and January 3rd, 2017 special meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1, October 13th, 2015, December 5th, 2016, and January 3rd, 2017 special meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And our motion carries.
Make a motion that we adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 1.
I'll second.
And we need a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2.
Mayor, we need
Got to
to,
vote on it.
Oh, I thought we did, oh.
We didn't vote.
And I apologize, it's because we went out of order and I have marks all over everything. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Now we can.
Okay, now I need a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility Districts Number 2.
I make a motion to adjourn to Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 2.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item A is our public hearing to receive citizens' comments on the proposed final budget for Merrill Ranch Community Facility Districts Number 2. Joe Jarvis, I'm going to invite you to the podium, and then I'm also going to ask public comment. Does anybody have anything they would like to come up and say at this time? Okay, closing public comment.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members. You're going to hear a lot from me tonight. This is the same information and the same presentation. If it pleases the Madam Mayor, I'm going to skip to the slides that are different, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As I said before, the information on this flyer has nothing to do with the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities Districts. I want to point out that this has been the trend of where we were and where we are now. Because the district has held the rate constant, the reason that the amount of revenue being collected has increased is because the property values have increased and because the number of structures built in the area have increased.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Anderson?
Kent?
Since it's essentially very similar information, even though it's pretty much identical information from CFD number 1 to number 2, Councilman Anderson asked a key question during the last item that I think is also very relevant to this item when talking about the rates. And I think it's completely appropriate to say, as part of this budget, understand that that's with the estimation that we are going to go forth and do another bond sale this year to maintain the rate, to reimburse the developer for improvements that have been completed up to the amount of the increased valuation in the district. Does that make sense? So we're planning to come back to council this summer for another sale of GO bonds in CFD number 2, because the actual assessed value in the district has increased. So therefore, we have the capability to reimburse the developer for investments already made in that district. Does that make sense?
It does.
The only other comments I would like to add are the fact that I've placed a copy of the revised version on the dais. And in addition, if I can go back to this just explanation, one item I didn't bring up is each of these taxing authorities has their own public hearings. They're all required to have their own public hearings where they have these kind of conversations. Moving down, I'm presenting scenario number 1, which is to maintain the rates of 3.25 and 30 cents, and that is the recommendation from staff at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joe Jarvis. With that, we do need a discussion, approval, or disapproval of a resolution of the Merrill Ranch Community Facility District Number 2, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2017 and 2018.
I have a question.
Yes.
We never get any kind of forecast from Pulte as to what the expenses are going to be for a year, or when they're going to put in a claim for money?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I can answer that question. So the answer is yes. I'm now recalling a conversation that I was invited to participate with Pulte, and I asked him the question, how much do you anticipate needing this next fiscal year? And they've been in constant communication with us to help us understand what we need to bond for in this next fiscal year. And as the town manager alluded to, we are going to be bringing back a request for new bonding in order to reimburse Pulte. One of the things that I'm going to be working with Mr. Salas on is trying to understand what they've already submitted, what has already been built and they haven't been reimbursed for, and what they're anticipating building in the near future. He is much more aware of what those particular projects are, and so I'm going to get updated.
I know some of the bills that we got on bonding was streets and things that had been done 5 years ago.
And that is correct. That is correct. And what limits us is the ability for us to pay back the debt because there's only a certain number of homes being built. As Mr. Billingsley talked about, in order to keep that capacity to allow us to bond, we have to wait a little while before we have enough fund balance, enough revenue capacity in order to obtain the next bond to pay off. And so it's very important that we're paying for infrastructure that's already in place or soon will be in place, not infrastructure that will be in place in the future.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's also, I just want to recommunicate the same rate that we've been paying consistently in these CFDs. And we're just continuing that same plan, as well as renegotiating those bonds for a lower rate in a shorter time span. So in the long run, we'll essentially save money.
That is correct. That is one of the guidelines that you, the district council, have given us, and also Stiefel, who is our advisor on community facilities district. We have given them the specific criteria, and they have come up with the analysis that meets that criteria. As the council knows, we wanted to move forward with bonding, and so some of the rates are better than others. And working with Stiefel, every year we are going to continue to review the bonds that we have to see if we can get a better rate of return, keeping in mind that refunding a bond costs money. And if the savings that you have in the refunding doesn't exceed how much it costs to refund, then you're not going to refund because it doesn't benefit the district members.
Correct.
And so we will be presenting one of those analysis to you in the near future for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we need a discussion, approval, or disapproval at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number MRCFD 233-17 for the adopting the budget for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Next is ordinance number MRCFD 213-17, which is the first reading of an ordinance of the Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2, Pinal County, Arizona, levying the assessed valuation of property within the Community Facility Districts Number 1, subject to taxation of a certain sum upon each $100 evaluation sufficient to raise the amount estimated to be received from funds for the community facilities expenses for the fiscal year ending the 30th day of June 2018 and declaring an emergency. Mr. Joe Jarvis, do you have anything? Okay, this is the same that appeared for MRCFD number 1, and this will come back again in the future.
Mayor,
Let's
small
make sure.
typographical error on,
District 2.
District 2.
thank you.
Okay, there was a typo, so it's going to say District 2 instead of 1. Item D is discussion, approval, disapproval of the Merrill Ranch Community Facility Districts Number 2, October 13th, 2015, December 5th, 2016, and January 3rd, 2017 for the special meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2 minutes of October 13th, 2015, December 5th, 2016, and January 3rd, 2017 special meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion in multiple seconds. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Make a motion that we adjourn from Merrill Ranch Community Facilities District Number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 11 is our public hearings and presentation. Item A is a public hearing receiving citizens' comments on the proposed final budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. Mr. Joe Jarvis, I'm also going to be opening the floor. Are there any citizens that have any comments that they would like to say at this time? Thank you, sir. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, member of the council, members of the council. My name is Bill Tanner. I live at 2927 North Princeton Drive in Florence, Arizona. And please let me know if this is the appropriate time to ask the question. This is my first time before the council, so I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the process. But specific to the budget, I have two questions and a comment. To date, I was wondering if you could tell me to date how much the town of Florence has spent in litigation against Florence Copper. That would include administrative proceedings as well. Can you tell me, question number two, can you tell me within the budget that's being presented tonight where the line item is that will show members of the public like myself the money that's earmarked for any contemplated litigation against Florence Copper? And then finally, a couple of weeks ago, I submitted through your online portal a request under the Arizona Public Records Disclosure Act for all public documentation between the town of Florence with regards to Florence Copper. I have not received a response to that request, so I'm wondering if you can advise me on how best I can pursue that so that I can get some additional information.
Okay, I'm going to take your concerns one by one. For the first item that you asked, I would ask you to speak with Mr. Billingsley because it's not an agenda marked item regarding, the total amount spent up to date. So that's something that you can speak with him or Mr. Knutson about because it is public information. Item number two, you asked the amount is earmarked for litigation towards Florence Copper. We do not earmark. We do have litigation denoted, but it doesn't specify to whom or which. It just states legal fees. And for, yes, sir, it just states legal fees. We do not earmark specific entities. And your third question that you had asked,
On that, I didn't see that, I mean, I must have missed it in the 200 pages of budget, so could you tell me how much is earmarked then?
when we have that presentation, I'll have Joe bring that up for
Thank
the
you.
public. You're very welcome. And your third in regards to your request, again, I would direct you to our town manager, Mr. Billingsley, town clerk, Ms. Lisa Garcia, and she'll make sure that you have the information that you requested, as well as communicate with mayor and council regarding that matter.
Outstanding. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, if there are no other comments at this time, is that for now, Ms. Cortez? Okay.
Yes.
Correct. All right, with that, we're going to close call to the public for that item, the hearing. Can we please turn the air conditioning,
It's actually down, it's cold.
the temperature up or down, Ms. Colleen?
I mean, up to
It's cold in here.
it's freezing cold in here.
Too cold.
Awesome.
Turn on the heat. Open the door.
All right, item B is our public hearing to receive citizens' comments on property tax levy of the town of Florence, ordinance number 657-17, and the first reading of ordinance number 657-17, an ordinance of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, levying the assessed valuation of the property within the town of Florence, subject to taxation of certain sum upon each $100 of valuation sufficient to raise the amount estimated to be received from funds for general municipal expenses for the fiscal year ending the 30th day of June 2018 and declaring an emergency. Mr. Joe Jarvis.
Madam Mayor, if I might, I have prepared a presentation on the final budget for the public hearing. Would you like to hear the presentation, or would you like to move on to the tax levy?
We would like to see the presentation because I know there are some members of the community that were looking forward to it.
Okay, then I have that up on the screen at this time. If I might, Madam Mayor, I have answers to the gentleman's questions.
Okay, yes, sir.
The first question was the amount of money to date that has been spent, and that is 1.2 million.
He's not even in here right now, so answer it later.
Okay, I will. Excuse me.
Stepped outside.
I will do that later.
Thank you.
Please tell me when it's appropriate time. I will move forward with the public hearing item. All right, first, before I begin that presentation, I want to say something about the SLIDs, the Street Light Improvement District. As the council and the public know, the secondary property tax for the SLIDs has not been charged in a couple years because of the available fund balance. And it is the recommendation from staff that we do not charge for that secondary property tax this next fiscal year. And so there'll be no discussion on the SLIDs during any of my presentations today or in the future meeting because the assessed rate is $0. With that in mind, I'm really excited to be here. We have been working really hard. I pretty much have been running since I started work at this place. And I don't have more gray hair because I had a lot of it before. And that's a good thing. So I'm really excited that we've all worked hard to get to this point. And I'm excited to present this because budgets are exciting to me. And I know they're not to other people. So we're going to move forward. Overview of my presentation. And if I'm going too long and talking too much, tell me and I'll speed up. Okay. Staff is presenting the final budget that is in line with the strategic plan that was adopted earlier this year by this council. The town will receive less revenue in fiscal year 17-18 than we received in general fund revenue in 16-17. There will be a discussion on the property tax levy, but that will be part of the public hearing. That will be the next item if it pleases the council. Tonight, I'll be presenting a budget that includes maintaining a similar benefit plan for employees, 5% base general adjustment for full-time employees, reallocation of specific salaries to the fund for which they work, and organizational changes. We had council work sessions. We had budget committee meetings. We had recommendations of the council. We adopted a tentative budget, and now we're at the final budget. As we may remember, the tentative budget must be adopted before the third week in July, which you were successful in doing, and the tentative budget approves the ceiling for the budget. The council may choose to decrease the budget or maintain the budget equal to the tentative, but you cannot increase the budget, as I think Councilwoman Wall mentioned earlier this evening. Next item is, on April 17th, this is the information I presented. Quite a few things have changed since then. One of the things we have is we finally received our final numbers for this next fiscal year. That was the thing we were waiting for. And I was trying to be very conservative. I was being ultra conservative in my estimates. And so when we finally got our number, great news, I was ultra conservative and we could bump the budget up a little bit. Next item, and what happened after that meeting? A budget committee was formed, and here are the members of that budget committee, and we've talked about the meetings that they held. And I appreciate the direction we've received this evening as to how the council would like to move forward this next fiscal year. This is a review of the meetings that we've talked about. This evening, we've already had our budget work session. Now we're having our public hearing on the final budget. August 7th is when we'll be presenting the tax levy for council's consideration. Next item is general fund revenue. We were at the conservative revenue, now we're at the moderate revenue. How does that relate to revenue we've had in the past? This is a beautiful bar graph talking about how it relates. We're in line. We're not anticipating huge jumps in our revenue. Let me go back and point out the reason this number changes, we received the state shared revenue based upon the current population. As we know, last year our population was miscalculated. Thankfully, the state did not ask us to give the money back. Moderate revenues remain conservative. Staff will track and provide revenue projections. As I talked about, we're planning on doing quarterly presentations to you and to community organizations. It is critical that staff present a balanced budget, that the revenue equals or exceeds the expenses for this next fiscal year. This is a presentation of the revenue, how it's separated out. Please note that the revenue for the special districts is not here, and the revenue for the enterprise funds are not recognized here. As we know, the enterprise funds are mainly funded by the revenue collected from those utilities. You will notice that our property tax is about 8% of that revenue. Our state share revenue is about 54% of the revenue. We are significantly dependent on that state share revenue. That state share revenue is controlled and managed by the state. And every year they look at that very closely. Each year, it's important that the staff look at how much it costs to do business and think about how much it's going to cost next year. As we know, costs increase, and it's important that we as a staff think about, okay, what are things that we can do different? So we are always presenting ideas on how we can decrease the budget. Department came up with a number of suggestions, but our goal, administration's goal to the departments was reduction should not be a reduction in services to citizens, and departments will operate within that budget. And we have implemented some reductions. The number of hours that the fitness center will be open this next year will be less, and we're going to maintain within that budget. We made some minor adjustments that did not reduce the quality of service to the citizens. Here is a representation of some of those reductions at a glance. Let's talk a little bit about operational budgets. What funds do we have? The reason we have funds is because of restrictions that exist within the state, the federal government, the county, and within the city, the town. In addition, there are specific revenue types that we only can spend out of certain areas, and we also be able to provide the demarcation between different kinds of revenue sources and expenditures, so it's easier to track. It's difficult for me to track my own budget and then add all of these budgets together. It makes it very complex, and so that's part of the reason why we have the separation of funds. These are the general fund expenditures for this next fiscal year. I did some grouping so they all could fit on the slide because it's a very large slide. This is a representation of what makes up the general fund expenditures. 48% of the general fund expenditures are for public safety. Then you have all those separations out from that point on. HERF and enterprise funds. Now, you'll notice that there's a significant increase from the forecast to the budget for these fiscal years. The reason is because of the anticipated CIP projects. We've put on a CIP for this next fiscal year and the anticipated projects that we're going to do. In HERF, the council moved forward with a HERF bond and have asked us to spend that money in a timely manner. And it is our plan to spend quite a bit of that money this next fiscal year. So that's why there's that separation between, or the difference between the forecast and the budget. Talking about people. Okay, compensation. This is a slide you've seen before, kind of talks about what has happened in the past having to do with compensation. Now we're on to the next steps for the budget. Presentation and consideration of the adoption of the budget tonight. Presentation and consideration adoption of the property tax levy for the town on August 7th. Things for us to consider that are on the horizon. January 2018, the state minimum wage will increase to $10.50. That will impact our budget. Budget fiscal year 2018 and 19 session, we are considering the internal comp and class review and recommendations. We are considering a benefit review. And then there's a variety of other conversations we're going to have. And one of those things is the budget calendar that I will be presenting. And that covers the presentation.
Thank you. And at this time also, would you please address those questions that you were going to address?
I will.
Earlier. Thank you.
The first question is, how much has the town of Florence spent on that particular legal case? And the amount is $1.2 million. On page 33 of the budget book, this is the explanation of the legal department, Department 504. There is a particular line that's number 217, and that is called professional services. We have budgeted $250,000 for professional services. Now, those are all any type of professional services that the legal department needs in order to function and meet the strategic plan goals of the council. And so that can be used for any of those type of professional services.
Thank you very much.
Was that 1.2 spread out over 3 years, I think, or 2?
I think it was longer than...
4 years.
4 years, okay.
4 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, with the hearing, we will be bringing that again in the future. So thank you, Mr. Joe Jarvis. And with that, we're going to skip to item 12 because we've already had the presentations C, D, and E.
Mayor, did we go ahead with item B and do the first reading?
Yes.
Number?
So we had the citizens' comments, A. We had the resolution, and
The ordinance.
Oh, she read it.
yes, no, it was read.
First reading.
It was read, and then we moved on to the ordinance. And that's,
So you're up to 12?
yes, item 12. Next time, we will not go out of order. Because I apologize, it's very confusing when we go out of order. Okay, so we need to adjourn to a special meeting of the mayor and council.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn to a special meeting of the mayor and council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item A on this is a resolution number 1631-17, which is the discussion, approval, and disapproval of a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2017 and 18. Before we call for a roll call vote, are there any members of council that have anything that they'd like to say at this time?
I do.
Yes.
On Schedule A, line number 3, prior to submitting to your official budget forms, you need to insert the fund balance for June 30th, 2017 that's estimated in each of the budgets. That will answer your question, Mr. Anderson, about financial ability to cover the budgeted expenditures.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gillane, for that observation.
Yeah, I would like to just say something about our budget. We know that our revenues may be going down. I don't think anybody is going to disagree with me on that. We know that Santan Valley may incorporate, and so there's a chance there that we're going to lose a pretty good part of the state share. We know that other towns in Pinal County are growing faster than we are. So that's another opportunity for the pie to get sliced differently, and we may lose more because of that. We also know that Maricopa County is growing faster than Pinal County. So the big pie might get sliced differently. So I would just think that in this next year, when we start preparing for our budget, that we start thinking about ways that we start building our reserves back up to cover any contingencies that we might have and take a very conservative view. We also know that the highway fund forecast is going down, right, Jess? Okay. So, I don't want to be preaching doom and gloom, but it doesn't look too bright. So just so that we have that in mind for our forecast for our budget for next year, let's start taking a very conservative approach on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of council? All right, with that, I'd like to call for a roll call vote, please.
Motion.
Oh, we need a motion and a roll call vote, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 1631-17, a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Garcia, could we please have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Hawkins?
Aye.
Councilmember Wall?
Aye.
Councilmember Larson?
Aye.
Councilmember Gillane?
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Woolridge?
Aye.
Mayor Walter?
Aye.
We have an unanimous approval.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we adjourn from a special meeting of the mayor and council.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 14 is our consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda, unless a council member or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Item A is resolution number 1630-17, which is our adoption of a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, authorizing the town to enter into a grant agreement with the City of Tucson Police Department regarding the high-intensity drug trafficking area. Item B is approval of the 2017 Emergency Medical Transportation Service Agreement with American Medical Response Incorporated to obtain, which we need to put a space in between those two words, the operational and monetary benefits provided by the terms of this agreement. Item C is approval of the maintenance agreement with Superstition Fire and Medical District to provide repair and maintenance services on the town of Florence's fire apparatus and equipment. Item D is approval of the Pinal County College District intergovernmental agreement with the Town of Florence Fire Department to share resources to provide instruction, education, and training for students in the college fire science program. Item E is authorization to enter into a lease agreement with Pinal County for property located at 383 North Main Street, Florence, Arizona, commonly known as former Pinal County election site. Item F provides authorization to dispose of 2 vertical balers from the Public Works Department. Item G is approval of the Gila River Cellular General Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless, master agreement with the Town of Florence for use of the property in connection with Verizon's operation of its small cell wireless network. First, approval of site supplement number 1 license. Second, approval of site supplemental number 2 license. Third, approval of site supplemental number 3 license. Item H is approval of the June 5th, June 6th, and June 19th, 2017 Town Council regular meeting minutes and June 19th, 2017 Town Council special minutes. Item H is approval of accepting the registrar of demands ending May 30th, 2017 in the amount of $2,152,618.77. Is there any member of council that would like anything removed at this time?
I was just going to ask a question on F, and I don't know if this is a grant, these are grant, was a grant-funded bailers. Are there any restrictions on the disposal of these?
Let's go ahead and we'll pull that item, and then we can discuss it at that time. Are there any other questions regarding any other items?
I'd like to pull item G with a couple of questions.
Yeah, I agree with G. I have questions on G also.
I was going to pull that as well. And I also wanted to pull item number B. I had B and G, and we'll add F into that. So I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items B, F, and G at this time.
Don't move.
Okay.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, let's start with item number F, which is the authorization to dispose of 2 vertical balers from Public Works Department. Councilmember Galeen.
I just had a question on that, just to make sure there's no restrictions on disposal.
Councilwoman Gleen, it was very important for us to research to make sure that there were no restrictions, so we would not be afoul with our grantor, and we have determined that we will not be afoul with our grantor, and we thought it appropriate to move these balers onto somebody who can use them very well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number G. Councilmember Wall.
Whoops. I know this is becoming an issue throughout the state, and I thought it might be a good opportunity to start the discussion of what's involved with approving these small cell units. And as near as I could tell, all 3 of them are located near Anthem K8. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Wall, I believe they're all in Anthem, and these were sites that Verizon approached the staff with a number of months ago. I know there's been legislation adopted at the state level that changes the format and the rules a little bit with small cell sites. But anyway, these are small cell sites, and they are all in Anthem.
Are they on towers? And have the surrounding owners and operators, for example, at K8, are they aware of what's going in around them?
Madam Mayor, Councilwoman, I can answer some of that because I sat in a meeting some time ago, but Chris may need to pick up where I left off. They are on light standards that currently exist in Anthem.
Light standards?
Light poles.
Okay, thank you.
So for like street lighting. They are going to provide a new pole that's a structural pole. The existing poles are not. They're just for street lighting. So there will be a new pole that's a structural pole at the same height, will have the same type of light, and it will have an antenna that's mounted to it. If I recall from the meeting I sat in, and I think Chris is still here, they're like the size of a shoebox. Is that correct? And it's placed on the pole, and then there's a unit on the ground, if I recall, but it'll be hardly recognizable as compared to what's there now. It's not a big monstrosity of a tower being placed. It's just a modification of an existing streetlight pole. You're absolutely correct. There was a law passed in the legislature that becomes effective in August of this year, August the 7th, I believe. Just had that in his presentation, or it's the 9th, and it very clearly specifies what we can and cannot do. We asked the applicant if they would like to wait until after the 9th, and they said, no, we want to get it done now for timing purposes. And they are good with the agreement as it exists, correct, Cliff? I don't know if they're present this evening.
No, I don't believe they are. And what my understanding from them is that they had initiated the process and geared up all the engineering and have been approved by the planning department with the design aspect. And despite the legislation, they wanted to proceed with these sites. That's my understanding of their motive.
Why have they selected, and this is part of my question, why did they select those 3 sites? And it would be beneficial if they were actually present today. I would like to make that known.
Madam Mayor, I'll do my best to answer this one as well, and because I did sit in a meeting where they came in and presented. They have essentially a signal map they put together, which is where are the optimum places to locate these facilities to get the proper reach that they need. And my understanding from that meeting is the technology is changing, and actually more data is going to be received, and our cell phones are going to get even more powerful than they are now. And so they need short band, essentially, with respect to this. It's a little bit different technology. Cliff just provided me with the most recent design. From what I can tell, the structural pole will have the same type of light with the same head, but there will be an extension above where the mast arm for that light takes off, and there will be a box placed above that. And like I said before, a box on the ground. But they decided optimally how to place those to serve the customers and provide the service that for the new technology.
Do they have any actual pictures rather than just the diagram that they provided, like a real-life picture of what it looks like?
I'm looking back at Michelle, and she's nodding her head yes.
So just to clarify, there's nothing on top of the shoebox. It's just a size of a shoebox is what you're explaining that sits on top of the
I don't know the actual size. I just know what was explained. But he just showed me a drawing of the light. So the pole goes up, the light standard sticks out, the box is above the mast arm from the light standard, but I don't know an actual size.
Just concerned about the aesthetics of the community and making sure that it remains consistent.
Is it critical that we work on this tonight, or can we have somebody come give us a presentation and a little more in-depth?
I agree with you, Councilmember Hawkins. I would like to see if we could place this on a future agenda. What would the implications of that be?
Since the applicants aren't here, I don't know if there are any implications. It certainly is council's, if it's council's will to table this item, I would suggest that you do so, and we can tell them to come back at a later date and fully explain it.
Okay, I would like to table that agenda item if the rest of council.
And maybe know a copy of what the law is on it, what we can and cannot control.
I have a couple questions too. I'd like to get added to that.
Go ahead, Councilmember Anderson.
One, does this replace the existing poles in any way? You know, there's that big cell tower there behind the school. And the second question is this going to support wireless connections in any way?
I will do my best, council member, to answer both questions. To understand your first question, I'm going to give you two different answers. The first one is it will replace an existing pole. They will tear out an existing pole. Perhaps tear out is the wrong term. They will remove an existing pole that will go into our stockpile. They will replace that with a pole that looks just like that pole, that is a structural pole that will be put in place. In terms of will it affect the need for the tower that currently exists out there? There are two towers. The town has a tower and the county has a tower that have items cited on it. I cannot comment on whether that would have any impact on those existing towers.
I'm talking about there's a cell tower there behind the school, behind the ballpark. I know we have a tower down next to the fire station.
Right.
But
it's probably a tower that the school is getting revenue from.
Well, I can't speak to that because I don't know the answer to that question. However, as I said, I sat in one meeting, but the meeting that I sat in, apparently I think this is Verizon. They get a lot of complaints from folks that live in Anthem. I don't live in Anthem, but they get a lot of complaints from folks that live in Anthem about areas of Anthem that don't have coverage. So I think they're trying to solve that, and in addition, prepare for the new technology, the next wave of cell phones.
But what about wireless? Are they going to give us wireless service?
I cannot answer that, sir. I'm sorry. I don't know.
How fast do you think we could get them back into, like, the next meeting? You think that would be something be feasible?
I will ask staff to attempt to get them here at our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, because I love the technology. I just want to make sure it's feasible.
All right, thank you. The next item, I just had some questions regarding item B.
Do we need to make a motion to,
Well, we have the two other items, so what we'll do is we'll have all of the items at the end where we approve, and then a motion to table the one item, possibly two. So Chief Strayer, what changed from the last contract to this contract?
There's primarily the biggest change we're going to see has to do with our EMS supplies. We maintained our paramedic write-in fee, which is about $100 per write-in. We added a stipend for EMS supplies where we will restock our own supplies and they'll pay us per call. Beyond that, there are some operational benefits, compatibility issues with mobile computers and things like that. That's the primary language, but the biggest change is EMS supplies restock. It's very similar agreement to the last one.
Okay. Now, how come because one of the differences that I'm under the impression is, how come they're not providing equipment if they're billing for the items that we're buying? Like, for example, go ahead.
Mayor Walter, so a typical medical call, for instance, we would use like a nasal cannula for oxygen. We would use IV supplies, things like that. Under the way we currently do it, we use our supplies and they restock us in the field. Under the new agreement, we will provide our own EMS supplies, and they would just pay us a flat fee per call that averages out over all calls over the course of the contract. And we would buy our own medical supplies. That gives us more control of the quality of the supplies we provide and the inventory and those kinds of things.
Okay. Have we looked towards budgetary, the budget in specific of what we would be spending purchasing versus what we're actually being reimbursed for?
Yes, Mayor Walter, we're and council. This is a very common agreement amongst departments all over Arizona that we've entered into. Although our agreement's better. By the way, we do have representatives from AMR here tonight if we have any questions for them. Most departments have dropped their write-in fee from $100 to $50. We were able to maintain I'm rounding it off, it's 93 something. So that's a benefit that we maintained that most other departments didn't. The other thing is on this stipend, it's $10 at most departments. Their range is 8 to 14, and we're at the very top of their range in terms of what we're collecting for our EMS supply. So we believe, we run 3,000 calls a year, 80% of those are medical. I'm very conservatively estimating 1,000 calls where we will collect this $14 stipend. That's $14,000 a year. We believe that is enough to provide our inventory. So we're going to start out by stocking up and then cash flow it from there on a monthly basis as we collect from AMR. So we believe it's enough, but I can answer that definitively a year from now, but the numbers look very good.
Okay. And then just another concern that in reading the newspapers, is their company for sale or is it being bought out?
There was an article by Reuters today that they're in advanced talk with a company to buy them out again. I would ask them to speak to that if you'd like to hear from them, because all I know is what I've read about in the paper.
If you gentlemen would come up to the podium, please.
David Jacobelli is the district manager for AMR. He's here tonight.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for attending this evening.
Nice to see you. I'm sorry, but I don't have a whole lot of information on the sale. It's not final. We do have meetings coming up, but again, we're part of Envision Healthcare, and apparently it's just not part of the Envision Healthcare moving forward, but I understand that there's several companies that are trying to buy AMR to enhance their overall system, and the one company is a large air ambulance system, so it kind of ties in with their whole service picture.
Did you say air ambulance?
Air Medical Company is one of those companies, yes.
Okay. Now, what assurance do you have or could you give that Florence won't lose providing services to our citizens if we proceed with the contract?
Well, I don't foresee any kind of changes at all. AMR, $2 billion company, and our resources aren't going to change here unless we have to add things in the future, depending on the growth and things like that. Being part of Rural Metro and then Southwest Ambulance prior to that, we've just enhanced all the way through, even though we've been bought out several times. It seems like that's the way of the world now with the healthcare situation. So, as you know, Envision Healthcare is a big, large medical doctors group. And so the ambulance portion of that was just a piece of that. And they grew it over the last couple of years. We have the nationwide FEMA contract. We also have the nationwide NASCAR Monster Energy contract. We have large contracts, so we provide service all over the United States. So AMR is the largest, and we've just been moving forward. So pretty exciting about what's going to happen next. So.
Okay. All right. No, I appreciate that you showed up this evening, and with the presentation, it was just, when I was going through some of the items, examples of what we're paying $120 for, one of those needles that is drilled in through the bone, we're only being reimbursed, say, $14. And so my concern was strictly looking at it from a budgetary perspective, and granted, we don't run those calls, on a frequent basis, but I just want to make sure that, it's A, cost effective for the town, B, we're able to recoup what we're putting out there and providing services for our citizens on a continuous basis. And I was just concerned when I saw that, the company is looking at selling again, because this is about the third time.
Well, of course, Southwest Ambulance was the initial, and then we were bought by Rural Metro, and then AMR purchased Rural Metro Corporation. So, but as far as the supplies, we've done statistics, and the factor over, like you said, we don't use those IO needles very often, but as a general EMS call, and so every call they're going to get $14, so it averages out, and that's how it comes out for each call. So no matter if you use like one call, you might use $3, another call you might use, $20. It depends on the severity of the call and things like that. So, but it averages out that every call they're going to get $14.
Okay, and then my final concern was just, I understand that the contract's for 5 years, but it also stated somewhere in there that either party could back out with 90 days notice. So what would we do if, say, you pulled out of the area? Do we ever have a plan for that?
Mayor Walter, yes. In the unlikely event that happened, we do have an ambulance, and we do have a very experienced medics. We could start transporting immediately if we had to.
Yeah, that language is standard in all of our contracts throughout the state.
Go ahead, Councilmember Larson.
You said you were going to buy the supplies and then get reimbursed later, right? That you were going to stockpile supplies. So in the event that were to happen, what would happen with those supplies, or how, are we going to be reimbursed? I mean, we wouldn't be reimbursed from because we'd be out of the contract, correct?
Mayor Walter, Councilmember Larson, that's a kind of a hypothetical scenario. There is a certificate of need process that the Department of Health Services manages that we would have to entertain and apply for in order to start transporting ourselves. And there are all the accompanying requirements, and specifically the budgetary, how much you can charge and so on is all part of that process. If they pulled out, so to speak, and we, as an emergency basis, had to begin transporting tomorrow, we wouldn't get anything for that because there's no provisions in place to do that. Obviously, we would move forward very quickly on obtaining a CON and getting that in place so that we could begin to charge.
Okay.
Mayor, question maybe for Joe. Has this been comprehended in our budget, this change?
Madam Mayor and Councilman Anderson, we have been discussing this for some time, and we have incorporated it into our budget conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I can say, you know, we've been in Pinal County since 1982, and we have a CON that covers the entire area. So even if there was some sort of contractual agreement, we still have a duty to serve the citizens here. So like I said, that language is in every single contract that we have. It's just like if the city decides that they want to go in a new direction, they can send us a letter saying, this is what we want to do, things like that. So it protects both sides.
No, and again, I really do appreciate that you took the time to show up to the meeting to, address our questions and concerns.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're very proud to serve the citizens of Florence and the entire county. And we look at it every 6 months, and we just, we just added resources and new ambulances in the entire county. So this entire year, so it's been great. Just can't watch out for the flying trampolines this weekend. So
I'm not a fan of the design of the ambulances, though. I'm just going to put that out there.
we have several different designs, so you have to pick one you want.
I don't like the van.
You don't like the van?
No, I don't.
That's the new trend. That's the European
Yeah, we're not
Sprinter
European.
van. So.
Mr. Billingsley.
I wanted to take time during this item to thank Chief Strayer for his contributions with respect to this negotiation. It's been going on for quite some time. We've seen several different variations of the agreement, had multiple discussions, and have done a whole bunch of research on other contracts and fortuitous terms from other contracts, and Dave has really done a great job, and I want to congratulate him on that effort. And secondarily, I want to thank AMR for the way that you worked with us, and I can tell council in good faith that this is a better agreement than the other ones that we reviewed. So thank you very much for your negotiation, and thank you again, Dave.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, council, we need a motion to approve items B and F.
Make a motion to approve items B and F from the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we need a motion to table item G until future notice.
I make a motion to table item G until future notice.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I would like to take a 5-minute break at this time, as we've been here for 2 hours and 20 minutes, so council will take a 5-minute break and then reconvene. All right, we are going to revisit item 11B. Item 11B was the public hearing to receive citizens' comments on the property tax levy of the Town of Florence Ordinance Number 657-17, and it was the first reading of Ordinance Number 657-17, which is an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, levying the assessed valuation of the property within the Town of Florence, subject to taxation of certain sum upon each $100, valuation sufficient to raise the amount estimated to be received from funds for the general municipal expenses for the fiscal year ending the 30th day of June 2018 and declaring an emergency. So in opening that public hearing, is there any members of public that have anything that they'd like to comment upon at this time? Okay, and closing that. Item 15 is our new business, which is discussion, approval, and disapproval of a lot hold agreement between the Town of Florence and the Pulte Home Company, LLC, to not allow sales or vertical construction of houses on Pawn Anthem at Merrill Ranch Units 38, lots 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 that are currently shown to be within the limits of the FEMA Flood Zone A until such time that FEMA has removed those lots from the FEMA flood zone. Chris Alice to present.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I don't want to get too specific on the technical items here. I want to make sure that everyone understands that this item has nothing to do with previous items that we've had in the floodplain or the LOMAR that was recently approved. These are completely two different items. The previous item had two components. Obviously, there was an area that was being removed out of a floodplain, a real floodplain, and then there was the erroneous mapping of homes that were not in a floodplain, but FEMA had showed them in a floodplain. This has nothing to do with that. This is a new unit that is being approved in a matter of minutes for the final plat. One of our conditions for that final plat to be approved was that we do a lot hold agreement, and that is to protect multiple parties. The last thing that we want is homeowners purchasing a home and them having to either pay flood insurance, and this sometimes can go on based on my previous experience. A LOMAR can take multiple years, depending on if a relationship with a reviewer has now moved on. There's been technical changes. There have been other floodplain studies done in the area that affect now the hydrology or the hydraulics of the area. There are multiple reasons why a LOMAR can go on for multiple years. And honestly, most importantly, the NFIP is set up to stop these type of events from occurring. We should not knowingly allow homes to be built in a recognized floodplain. They need to wait until a LOMAR is approved. So the process that is occurring is a CLOMAR has been approved. They have been moving the dirt, and once the dirt is moved and all the structures have been built, they will now go out there and do the as-built conditions and supply an update for the LOMAR. Once the LOMAR has been approved, we will come back and modify this here, I believe, through the county recorder's office, and those lots will be available to be built upon at that point. Second to this is the fact that we are also we're modifying our software to make sure that those homes cannot be sold. So we have redundancies in it. This is just not one agreement, but we're also doing it in our software as well. These 6 lots, we do not want homes being built upon those.
Okay. Are there any members of council have any questions at this time regarding this agenda item?
I would just have one comment. Can you use a couple of acronyms there? Can you explain what a LOMAR and a CLOMAR?
I apologize. The conditional letter of map of revision is the CLOMAR process. So that is done early on after the engineering firm has performed all of their analysis. Think of it as a hypothetical. This is what would happen if the condition is built. And then once the earthwork is performed and all the structures are in place, a letter of map revision, the LOMAR, is then issued by FEMA so that now the property is out of a floodplain.
So in simple terms, they're just going to make sure the land is out of the floodplain with building up of the ground.
Or not just building it above the ground, but modifying of the adjacent waterways and the floodplain there. That's what's most likely all of it's being done, is the addition of structures and, again, improvement of the channels in the nearby area.
Okay.
Thank you. We need to approve or disapprove this agenda item, so with that, we need a motion.
And I'm actually glad they're doing this to just protect homeowners.
Well,
So with that, I'll make unless there are more comments.
Yeah, comment. When we make this motion, should we specify these lots that are in the floodplain that we're not approving?
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve the lot hold agreement between the town of Florence and Pulte Home Company LLC to not allow sales or vertical construction of houses upon Anthem at Merrill Ranch Unit 38, lots 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 that are currently shown to be within the limits of the FEMA flood zone.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item B is resolution number 1632-17, which is adoption of a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, approving the final plat for Anthem at Merrill Ranch, Unit 38, requiring the provision of an infrastructure improvement assurance or withholding of recordation to secure the satisfactory construction, installation, and dedication of the required improvements, establishing a deadline for the required improvements to be completed, and authorizing execution by the town manager of supporting documents. Michelle Orton.
Mayor Walter and council members, the proposed subdivision is located within Anthem at Merrill Ranch Plan Unit Development, and this part of the area is Sun City. There are 75 single-family residential lots proposed on the 23 acres. In regard to the subject wash, the resolution for this final plat adds an extra precaution to ensure that no homes will be constructed on lots 10 through 15 that may be within the FEMA-designated floodplain on the Walker Butte Wash. Neighborhood streets in this unit are designated and constructed with a 40-foot wide right-of-way, which is consistent with the AMR PUD zoning. The improvement plans for this unit will reflect modifications to the local street sidewalk standard to ensure ADA compliance. Unit 38 does have multiple points of access and connectivity. The preliminary plat for Unit 38 was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 15, 2016. The Town of Florence Public Works and Fire Department staff have reviewed the proposed subdivision and support the approval of this plat. Street names and addresses have been approved by Town's GIS coordinator, and the water and sewer infrastructure will be provided by Johnson Utilities. Pulte Homes will construct the roadways within this subdivision to town standards and maintain the roadways until the end of the construction warranty period. Development of this subdivision allows for continued rooftop development and population growth within the Town of Florence. Staff recommends that Town Council make a motion to approve resolution number 1632-17 for the final plat of Anthem at Merrill Ranch, Unit 38.
Thank you. Are there any members of council that have any questions at this time?
I just have a question, I guess, for Pulte. That flood zone that runs through there, it also runs under Hunt Highway. I noticed there was equipment out there digging out that. Does that need to be cleaned out, or what's the deal with that underpass there on Hunt?
Excellent question.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the flood zone there's an underpass adjacent to this that goes under Hunt Highway. It goes over to the other side. And I noticed there's been equipment out there this week that's digging on the other side. Is that underpass, is it passable, or is it working? Is water going through it, or why are they out there working on it?
The work that is being performed is on the pedestrian side. The side that is for the actual water, part of the actual water course, it has been complete.
Okay.
So the work that's being performed is for the pedestrian amenities.
Okay. Is there going to be a golf cart access through that, you know? We were told years ago that there was going to be a access from one side of Hunt Highway to the other.
It is wide enough for the golf cart to pass.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's all I have.
It is, but that is not part of the Unit 38 that we're discussing.
Okay. Is it a different unit?
Well, they're part of the highway improvements, the improvements you're discussing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we need a motion for resolution number 1632-17.
Make a resolution to approve resolution 1632-17.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And moving into the town manager's report.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I have a few items for tonight that I'll go through real quickly. First, I'm happy to announce the Florence Police Department Citizens Academy class of number 4 is currently accepting applications. And as I understand it, we're only about half full at this time. So if you're interested in being part of class number 4, the Police Department Citizens Academy, please get with the chief or one of the members of the department. The classes are scheduled to begin on September 5th of this year. So please get with the chief. The first class on the 5th will feature none other than myself. So I'm sure that'll be riveting. I probably scared a lot of people off. Okay, sorry for that. We had a very successful, and I know a number of the folks in this room attended the event. We had a very successful event at the community center regarding the USS Indianapolis program. We had in excess of 117 folks. It was standing room only, as I understand it. The town also recorded the talk, and we will get that on the website so that folks can watch that, and we're trying to reschedule a second one since it was so popular, perhaps this winter, and perhaps we'll be able to accommodate more folks. But congratulations to Jasper and his team for that event. Next, one of the items that we just approved in the budget tonight has to do with and it's part of the $2,400 that Joe was talking about, that's grants. We just got notice that we have been awarded a $63,000 grant from ADOT as part of the pass-through program that's called Section 5310, Persons with Disabilities Transportation. It's a federal formula fund, to purchase a new cutaway van with an ADA lift for the senior center to assist us with our transportation program that we have at the senior center. Our current van is 10 years old, and if you recall, it actually broke down last year, and we had to get a loaner that was 15 years old from Pinal Gila Council of Senior Citizens to be able to continue our services. So I'm happy to report that over this next year, we're going to be able to purchase a new van for the senior center, and that's a big success. Thank you to Jennifer, thank you to Brian, and I believe Chris assisted with that as well. And lastly, I have a letter that I was provided from the Hall of Flame Museum of Firefighting, which is, if any of you have ever toured it, it's downtown in Phoenix, and I'd like to read that into the record. Dear Chief Strayer, on behalf of the National Historical Fire Foundation, I would like to thank you for the contribution to the Hall of Flame Museum Fire Department's patch collection. With so many fire departments worldwide, it would be impossible to build and maintain such an extensive assortment of patches without the help of thoughtful visitors like yourself. We are honored to have the privilege of displaying your fire department's patch, and I hope that you will visit the museum again soon. So thank you, Dave. That's all I have for this evening.
Correction, that's not downtown, is it?
No, it's downtown Phoenix.
Downtown Phoenix, downtown Phoenix.
Downtown Phoenix?
Yes.
Okay. I thought it was out off of Van Buren.
Councilmember Anderson, it's over by the zoo, the Phoenix Zoo.
Yeah,
I have the address here, 6101 East Van Buren Street, Phoenix. So it's not downtown.
Not downtown.
It's by the Papago Buttes.
Yep.
Okay.
We do, however, have a fabulous museum on Main Street with some antique fire trucks in the back that...
We will. We'll have a beautiful one.
All right, our department reports. Are there any members of council that have any questions regarding the department reports that were provided?
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank our Public Works Director, well, actually now our Development Services Director, for the new format of the monthly report. I thought it was very readable and very easy to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it was streamlined, so it was appreciated. We have a call to the public. Miss Michelle Cordes. I try my best, please know that.
That's all right. Most people get it wrong, so it's okay. My name is Michelle Cordes, C-O-R-D as in David, E, S as in Sam. I live at 6566 West Desert Blossom Way, Florence, Arizona 85132. I'm in the Anthem community. Madam Mayor and council members, I come to you today to request that we take action as a town to either look at or at least consider either purchasing Johnson Utilities or finding a resolution to Johnson Utilities. The quality of water, as you know, is not acceptable. Their service is horrible, and many residents who have their services feel that they are unfairly charging us. For example, they say I use 30,000 gallons of water a month, consistently. Even when I was gone the entire month of June, somehow I still used 30,000 gallons. I've had my home tested for leaks. I don't have any leaks. I've called and talked to them, and you kind of just get the runaround. Nobody really has an answer for you. I've even monitored my own meter, and it's not consistent with Johnson Utilities, and we get charged. Service fees, I understand, should be the same except for those that are based on the water consumption. So if I use the same amount of water every month, how does that service fee change that is based on the amount of consumption? It should stay the same. If I use 30,000 last month and my bill, the CFD or whatever it was $56, how did it go up to 98?
Are you referring to the CARDG?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you. So just a lot of inconsistencies with no resolution, and they're not very willing to even discuss it with you. With the recent developments of Mr. Johnson and his business dealings, I think now would be the best time for the town to think about going in and possibly trying to purchase. I know that they had tried it before and it didn't succeed, but maybe now would be the time. Queen Creek has some rumblings that they are looking at purchasing it as well. So kind of want to be ahead of the game. I know that Santan Valley is a larger community serviced by Johnson Utilities than the Florence community because it's pretty much just the Anthem side. But since Anthem is part of Florence, we're requesting that you guys look into finding a resolution, at least for us, because they're not giving us a good service. The water is typically contaminated. It smells like sulfur at my house a lot of the times. And so that's what I'm here to ask about.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming to the meeting and speaking. Mr. Billingsley, would you touch base with her as well in regards, because we do have a customer service agreement as he is a provider, or Johnson Utilities is a provider in our town. And also, a few people had commented in regards to, Santan Valley, you can always come and talk to us as a council as well. I believe as we move forward in the future, we need to start looking at and talking about things, regionally, and how we can create a successful region within Pinal County. Are there any other members that would like to speak to call to the public at this time? Okay, moving into call to the council for current events only. Councilmember Larson.
Sorry, bear with me here. Okay. Well, it's been a while. I keep notes on my phone because I'll forget everything if I don't. So I apologize. I have to read my notes. Okay. So it's been a while since we've met, and I feel there's a lot that has happened since. There's some good things and some bad things. So just bear with me here. First of all, I wanted to thank Brian and the Parks and Rec staff for the 4th of July celebration and standing out in the heat for that entire time. I know it was so hot. I also wanted to congratulate all of the town staff for being named Niche's #1 best suburb to buy a house in Arizona, which is a large feat. So I definitely appreciate that. Now to the tough stuff. So first of all, I wanted to just say that I remain committed to my campaign promises to make decisions based off what's best for the town, our future, and our residents. And that being in this position, there's a lot of parallels between motherhood and running a household. For example, In response to the people who've spoken out about our continued copper mine legal battles, I have to be reminded that sometimes the kid who screams the loudest and is the most upset isn't always the one who needs the most attention. And that a lot of the speakers that have come out have been from out of town or have vested interest in the mining community. And then I'm doing what I believe is the best for our community. And in the end, no matter the outcome, I can look my kids in the eye and tell them that I'm doing my best to make the best decisions for them and our community. And that their lives and the community's safety never came second to money. In regards to safety and building safety, I just want to say that although the appeals board sided in our favor, there are no winners here. The town has now had a valuable building out of commission for too long, and staff has dedicated hours and days of its time focusing on one building that could have been used to focus on other projects. Right before all this took place in my hometown of Sioux Falls, a main building downtown collapsed from an unauthorized contract work. It killed a young man who had many friends in the same social circle, and also trapped a young woman and her dogs. So when I heard about the same issues going on, some of the issues going on in the building, my mind immediately went to that place. I couldn't, in sound judgment, let my town let them be that headline. I couldn't mourn a death just because of us possibly underestimating the needs of the building. There was just too much on the line. My thoughts go out to the business owners, and I sincerely have loved having you in town. I'm saddened by all that has transpired, and I hope we can find a way to stay in Florence. We are all human, and is there room for improvement? Yes, there always is. We hope we can work together to improve the situation and bring the building up to compliance as soon as possible. So on the note of compliance, I just want to bring some things to light. There was a recent article written regarding some allegations of possible police misconduct. So I just want to make my position clear. I think we have some of the best police force out there. I appreciate our police officers and have the utmost respect for their position and all the responsibilities it holds. On the same note, I have no tolerance for any abuse of power. There's no place for that here in Florence. We are a town built by history, and yet filled with people from all walks of life and from all over the country. We all demand common respect and decency, and we will not stand for less. And that's all I have for tonight, so thanks for bearing with me.
Thank you. Councilmember Wall.
Wow, well said, thank you. And I couldn't really add much more to that, other than I do have a question regarding the USS Indianapolis and Harpo Celaya. I remember that we passed a proclamation renaming our Florence post office in his behalf, and I thought it was going to take place this month. And I'm wondering if we know when or if that's going to happen.
I might be able to answer that. They decided that it's so hot right now, they postponed it until early fall. And also there'll be a lot of the residents will be back that leave in the summer, and they'll dedicate it in this fall. It should have been put in the newspaper.
That would be a good time to have another showing of the documentary. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes, I have a couple of things. One, I couldn't agree with our councilman anymore. It was a good presentation on your part. And would like to say that lots going on right now relative to the water situation in the state. I've shared information with you just to make the public aware. There's a blue ribbon committee that's been established by the governor to review our water availability, and WDR, the Water Resource Department of Arizona, is looking at some of the problems that they're having in keeping up with the water resources, their modeling system, and how much water we have available. It turns out we have, as a state, we have water available. There are areas where there's not water available, so they're trying to figure out how they can can trade that around. And relative to that, Brent and I have had several meetings with different people that work with our water availability. And Chris attended a meeting with us today where we were dealing with a vendor who deals with certain water credits. And so we just want you to know that we're trying to do our best to take care of our water situation, but it's an ongoing battle, and we're going to need a lot of support from our people and from our legislature to resolve all these problems. Second thing I wanted to bring up was a article that was in the paper this week about the downtown area and why the town is not doing more for downtown. It's rather frustrating to me that our citizens don't understand that the town can't give away money to people. We can't go downtown and give the sandwich shop money to paint their building. We have to do everything on an equal basis. If we paint one building in town, we have to offer it to all of them. Now, the question come up, well, we've done this and we've done that with buildings downtown in the past. Those funds were done with grants, correct? And so, a lot of the grants have gone away. We had state grants, we had federal grants, we had grants from, SHPO, and I don't know who all from over the years. We had grants that help us refurbish the hotel and stuff like that. Well, I talk to our grant person almost monthly about, have we got anything new? And, grants aren't available right now, very few. We got grants from ADOT to redo the downtown streets and street lights and park benches and stuff. Well, those grants have sort of dried up right now. We don't know if we're going to get them back or not, but, for people to think that the town should be doing something for one section of the town, we just can't do that. If we give money to downtown, we have to give money to everybody in town. So, and we don't have that money to give away. So I don't understand. It's sort of frustrating to me that people don't understand that, because that's been a way of life. It seems like forever, but they don't understand that the monies that we were able to get over the years was from the grants. It wasn't that the town council was passing out dollars to do things. So that's my frustration for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Galeen.
Yes, I just also wanted to say that I attended the USS Indianapolis movie along with my grandsons, and they were very impressed with it. They're 10 years old, and they had a front row seat and just loved it. And they were also impressed with the popcorn. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Hawkins.
Well, I'd just like to thank staff, Parks Recreation, the fire department, the police department, everybody involved with the 4th of July. And pretty much everything that's been said I agree with. So I think we're all pretty much on the same page. We're doing all we can downtown. And there was one statement that was made in the paper which I thought was uncalled for, but on the article on the Mr. Cox's building, one of the members of the board, the appeals board, made a statement that he felt that the town was abusing its power. We don't abuse our power. We have to live by the state statutes on commercial buildings that pertain to public safety. and the safety of other property owners also. So I was kind of disappointed that statement was made, that the town was abusive and rammed unsubstantiated, according to him, reasons to revoke that conditional occupancy permit. There was a lot of people here, and it took 2.5 days. So anybody that, you know, was here at the meetings, I should have seen and heard the testimony of what transpired. And I think the board did a very good job overall, but I was disappointed to see one of the board members make a statement to that effect. I was amazed, but anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Woolridge?
I actually think that's all been said tonight. I agree with the USS Indianapolis presentation. It was excellent, and kudos to the library for taking advantage of all the screens that were in the room, so they made sure that there were seats for everybody. That was a really nice setup. Popcorn was good. 4th of July was wonderful, but I didn't come out till the sun was almost down, so. But everything was good, and I appreciate all the work that you do, and just remember, everybody has a right to their opinion, and we can agree to disagree sometimes, so there's always two sides to a story, but we'll just keep moving and do the best that we can do. That's it.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it very short and sweet. I just want to touch back on the agenda items. I apologize if anything was left out. I did my best to check it over. I did revisit the one agenda item because there wasn't 100% certainty that it was opened up, so that's why we revisited it and opened it. So I apologize if there was any items that were unintentionally looked over. Evie Claire tonight, what a beautiful voice. There's very few voices that can actually bring somebody to like tear in their eye, and she has an amazing gift. Again, this is our first ceremonial key that we've actually physically given out, but as a whole council actually had the honor of bestowing upon somebody. July 4th was amazing. So thank you again for all the hard work and effort that went into that, coordinating the events. I like the shirts. I was trying to figure out what SWLA meant. There was supposed to be a letter that was to appear in the newspaper, but it had not yet appeared, so I'm hoping that the company had sent it to Mark. But there was some feedback that we received from some residents in regards to an agreement that we allowed a company to come into the town of Florence. And I just want to read their response to some of the issues that they had and how they're addressing the matter, just in case they haven't sent it to the Florence Reminder. Okay, this is from SWLA, which is the Service Line Warranties of America. Last year, the Town of Florence Town Council approved the launch of a new operational program to protect local homeowners from the cost and inconvenience of water and sewer line repairs on their property. This program is offered by our company, Service Line Warranties of America, SLWA, through the National League of Cities and Towns. Recently, homeowners received materials in the mail about the SLWA program and the opportunity to sign up for the optional service plans. Some residents living in mobile or manufactured homes contacted SLWA and were told that they don't qualify. leading some to criticize the mayor and town council. This criticism was misplaced and should have never been directed at our company for providing inaccurate information to residents. Mobile or manufactured homes that are permanently fixed to the ground do qualify under the SLWA program. SLWA regrets the confusion caused by our staff and welcomes homeowners living in this type of structure to sign up for this valuable program. Thank you to Mayor Walter and the Florence Town Council for their continued support. We look forward to serving the residents of Florence. I just wanted to make sure it was communicated to the residents that it was researched and brought forward that this company could provide a service to the residents. We allowed them to come in, and somehow there was misinformation that their company had given, and they're trying to make it correct. So I want to ensure that everybody has that information. And before I close, I just want to remind everybody that school officially starts for Florence Unified School District next Monday. So please drive safe in the school zone, watch out for kids. And as we all know, it's the first year our kindergartners start. There's always going to be lots of traffic in the morning and in the afternoon because everybody that has a 4 or 5-year-old that's going to school is going to bring their kid and pick them up that first week of school. All right, with that, we need a motion to adjourn to executive session.
I make a motion we adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, we are going to adjourn for executive session.